Hello, guys. Welcome to Napoleon Total War 3. I'm Z1. I'm casting your game for today. Well, not exactly casting. This is a game that I played in as the French, as you can clearly see. We're playing against the Austrians. So, NTW3, this is essentially the theaters of wars of the 1809 campaign, the War of the Fifth Coalition. So, you will see French armies, and then you will see the Austrians. Now, this game is a clan battle in the NTW3 community. So, there's a clan league essentially, which is competitive NTW3 in a way of the bestest players. And what you do is you just fight a bunch of clan battles and see whoever has the most wins at the end of the season, and that is the victor of the league. Now, the competitive NTW3 scene is pretty cool in this way because, well, NTW3 by itself is a very cool. It's just crazy mod. Like if you take a look at any of what they have. Like, for instance, this is the War of the Fifth Coalition, right? You have Davout's core, third core, if I believe correctly, and you have every single one of the units recreated in game, and the uniforms are uniquely designed. Sorry for the frame rate, by the way, bad computer. All the uniforms and all the units are recreated in a 1-to-1. I mean, well, like a 7-to-1, I think, like men scale. So, like, these are actual units that were fighting in the Napoleonic Wars all the way back in the day. You can see the cavalry units too. For instance, this is the, what do you call it? The Languedoc Chasseurs cavalry of Eugene, Army of Italy, which is I'm playing at this current moment. Um, and overall, just everything is so awesome about this mod. Like you can fight actual Napoleonic battles in the historical settings. Like this is map is of Egmule. This is battle map of Egmule. Egmule being a battle that happened in 1809 between Davout and parts of the Austrian army as Davout was being chased down, if I remember correctly. And yeah, they're just like crazy realistic maps. The units are all correct. For instance, this is Lefebvre's corps. It's the Bavarian corps that actually fought in the 1809 campaign. This is the Polish corps led by Poniatowski over here. Now, where's the general? We have him over here. Now, they're like you can recreate 1-to-1 strategies and actually play out strategies and tactics here as leading an army in Napoleon Total War. Now, if you take a look, you can pick and choose essentially what type of things you want to build. We have our spawns over here. We got Davout advancing through the forest with a massive amount of skirms. Very, very fast infantry. L5s, pretty much all L5s, yes. Which means that they're very fast. I have an L3 army with a lot of men. 2 big batteries of artillery. And then Eugene himself, Eugene the Bjornars. It's very good stuff. Now, today I wanted to show you how you should get an attack going, essentially. How you can just shatter the enemy with, Napoleonic tactics and just, destroy somebody on the battlefield. Now, you guys can see here, as we approach, we are scouting out the Austrian position. Scouting is very important, of course, in any battle. Our general strategy was that since an Austrian army spawns over here, an Austrian army spawns back here, and then 2 Austrian armies spawn over one here, I believe, around this house. Yeah, which they put a unit in, by the way. I believe it's an Austrian Grenadier in this unit. Once it loads in, it's not scouted yet. And then they had 2 armies spawn over here, and what happens is usually on this map, the strategy is to pull back to this tree line, but the enemy has held this frontal position. Now, of course, we wanted to attack to begin with, and I wanted Davout to essentially come here and screen out this army. I believe now this is Collerat's corps, so the Austrian corps led by General Collerat, and then this right here will be Johann's corps. Over here is going to be Hohenzollern, which is another general. And then over here, I believe is going to be Bellegarde, General von Bellegarde, I think. I forget exactly. I can show the stats afterwards and show it in post and editing. But we have Poniatowski screening out essentially the flanks. Varia is going to go frontally over here, as we see this attack. That this line is just very precarious essentially, and when you see opportunity, when it knocks at the door, you have to take it. And one thing, you will see in a second how this attack goes, and I'll show you. We brought some decent amounts of cavalry, dragoons, very, very big dragoons, as you can see here. These dragoons are going to be very important in the combined arm tactics that are being used to shatter the enemy. One big mistake that the Austrians make here is that they have landwehr. Again, this is the one-to-one recreation of the Austrian armies at this point. So you can see regular line infantry defending this little village area. But this here is a front line of really shitty militia units. So just straight off the bat, that's a mistake on its own. Because as the Austrians, you don't have too high morale. So if you have routing units like around you, because these landwehr are just going to rout, they're going to be destroyed. And once they rout, they have a morale debuff on allied units as they are routing. And since the Austrians already have low morale, when they get a morale debuff, they get even more in a precarious situation. So they just get continually screwed over. Now, as you can see, we will take our armies and try to pry open this Austrian formation because, well, it's not exactly a strong formation to begin with, but I will show you the tactics that are used to actually break the Austrians here. Now, I'm going to skip parts of this replay because I just want this video to be quicker. And what you can do is you can check out the replay channels. Like, there's a battle results in the NTW3 Discord. I'll put the NTW3 Discord down in the description below, and you can check that out and see the replays yourself and actually see how these battles and battles actually play out strategically, tactically, and whatnot. So here starts Davout's attack. The Austrians have a skirm line set up here, but I want to open this battle with Davout's attack over here so that they can focus attention over here, and then I just take my army and just blow through here. So now in goes my attack. I have a Grenadier unit coming up from the behind. Now, Grenadier units have very, very strong melee statistics, which is the reason why you want to use them to take houses and stuff. This house, I believe, is held also by an Austrian Grenadier. Yes, it is. Now, I would just like to come out and say that the enemy picked some very strange choices for their core. They picked Johann as a core instead of Liechtenstein, which is another thing that you can bring. Johann 12 point versus Liechtenstein 11. The Liechtenstein 11 will basically be all Grenadiers if you bring his division, if you bring a build where you can bring his Grenadiers essentially, and they have very, very good stats in comparison to Johann's. Johann's Grenadiers don't really have any stats at all. And in comparison, with this Johann build that the enemies have brought, they just brought militia and then Grenzer units. This is a Grenzer unit. And one thing about Grenzers is that they're big, they have good shooting stats, but they have really low morale. And they can't even square grand majority of the time. So I can just take my cavalry and hit every single one of these units without being scared of squares. Squares are absolutely countering to any single cavalry, but I can just screw this over completely because they can't square. Like, you gotta have some squares in your army at the very least, but with the Austrian army that they brought, they don't have any. So yeah, here goes his attack. Very simple tactics, you see. 2-on-1 fights over here as I can get. I use flanking things so that I can get flanking power onto this unit. And it's already redlining. It's going throughout. I have Varia support me from this end so that I can get control of the doors of the houses, which is the most important part of taking houses. You got to get control of the doors, essentially. And then once you get control of the doors, you can actually enter with units, and then enemy can't enter to support in comparison, which just makes you have an easier time. As you can see, we have some interesting stuff happening over here with Poland. Polish Lancers just demolish enemy cavalry. Now, this is the Dragoon unit, which means that it's a heavier type of cavalry than these Polish Lancers, which are C4. This is a C3 unit. And this is just a general rule of thumb, but heavier units of cavalry, like C1s, Cuirassiers, or, C2s, which are heavy lifeguard cavalry units, for instance, or like Ledoux, which is, the Grenadiers, au Cheval, of Imperial Guard. Just the lower the number goes, like C1, C2, that means, like, it's just going to be a heavier version of cavalry. And heavier version of cavalry always win in a one-on-one fight against lighter units of cavalry. Unless, like, the charge goes wrong, or you just have simply so much of a better unit like we have here. The Plantagenet Lancers, such an amazing charge bonus that they can just, like, destroy stuff on the get-go. Yeah, and as you can see here, we just have a really nice flank charge with this Lancer unit, and it just goes and it just hits this Dragoon, and it redlines. I don't think it's going to rout, but, it does a lot of damage. And here, as we can see, this attack is starting to open. As I pry open this defensive position and open my way for an attack, The house will rout soon because I have units surrounding it, and this is a militia unit, so even if I have, like, these are not very good. They're like regular line infantry, but they're not going to do too much damage because they're not very elite units, but this is a militia unit. Even though it's bigger, and that means you just have more muskets firing down the line, it's just going to rout because it has, like, no morale. It just doesn't have really shooting stats either, so unless you're, like, charging, like, directly at it for no reason, like, and you take a volley to the face, it's not going to do anything for you. And we can see here, we see a little line fight happening in the woods. These are Austrian Grenzers here. This is regular line infantry. Fighting in the forest. Devu has the Lizards, which are very big L5 units. Not very great stats, but they are big and they can move fast, which are very, very nice. And now that we've pried this position open, Varia can now move forward with his gigantic columns. And what this will do is essentially hold my flank, or again, my attack to come forward. My artillery has been bombarding the enemy this entire time, and now that this is open, it is now time to go. Now, a couple of things before we go into this attack. I just want to say the Austrians make a few mistakes here to begin with. First of all, the build. Bringing so many Grenzers, which are non-squareable units, which have really, really low morale, instead of just regular line infantry that can have some squares and have better stats, such as shooting stats, and, like, you know, similar amounts of size. Better morale, for instance, is the most important part. Just not bringing that and bringing whatever this is just a complete issue to begin with. As you can see, Devu just gets up close, shoots a few volleys at the enemy, and look, you just die and you rout. You rout at, like, not even half strength because you just have such low morale. Now, as I explained earlier, me bursting through this area without them supporting this this village just means that the Austrians are going to have routing units through their line. It's very, very painful. They can't really do much with this. Now, this area, I left this area completely open for very good reasoning. First of all, so that I can shoot artillery down it, but I realized over here that these are all Grenadier units that cannot square, which means that I can take my cavalry and make use of this space to just hit everything. They aren't even in the defensive position here, particularly. Look, they're redlining already because they have units that are routing with Devu. Devu's skirm line isn't even being attacked here. Like, many mistakes are made by the Austrians, but I'll show you how this attack goes, because this is genuinely just how you attack. You pressure from every flank and try to get as much morale damage as possible. Lefebvre advances with this gigantic column in support of this giant cavalry charge that's going to come in here. He has artillery facing him against the woods, but he has his column, and he has the momentum, and he has the morale buffs, actually, from the enemy routing units. In fact, you don't want routing units going through your line when you're this low morale to begin with, because the enemy will get a morale buff. And when they see routing units, and you will get a morale debuff, so it just ends up very, very bad for you. And in goes the cavalry charge. I get shot by a very nasty volley here by the landwehr, but since it has such low stats, low shooting stats, it just does no damage to me. I just keep going. Let the attack unfold. We're pushing straight forward here, kicking them out of the forest with Devu and some of my troops. Cavalry charges where there's no squares, and oh, the enemy just breaks. They shatter. Look at them. They're redlining so hard from my volleys. They try to countercharge with their cavalry, but I form square on my units because I've actually brought squareable units, and I've placed them in strategic positions. That's also important too, because you can't just, like, all squareable armies are difficult to bring because they're expensive. Now that I've blown apart this specific part of the position, they have a secondary line, but again, they have units routing through them, so I just go hit them. Go, go, go with their units. Make use of the little corners here, since the enemy has a line here and they're exposed. See? This unit can get close, and this unit can get close, and just shatter them with volleys. In goes more cavalry charges. Straight down the Austrian line. They cannot square. They just rout. Oh, look at them just shatter. They have more reserves here too, but they're not very much of use because they're just caught in this mass rout over here. Now I have Lefebvre continue pushing up because the enemy is walking away. Do not let them escape. That is the most important part. Do not let them escape. Now I do a little micro issues here. Look at this. Why am I in this column formation? Get into line and push. Forward, forward, forward. Now my units are tired, but I have more cavalry in the rear, in reserve, that are fresh, so that I can keep cycling them in for the attack. Now we go, go, go. As you can see, the Austrians have formed square over here, but their squares weren't in the front. Now they're caught in the mass rout, and my infantry can clean up the squares instead. Meanwhile, I'm going to see those squares and go, wow, the other units must not be able to square, because you usually aren't bringing all squareable armies most of the time. So my cav just goes forward into this massive routing blob. Bavaria's farming down the incredible amount of running units over here, as he can just, he can just absolutely drive it forward. Oh, you guys got cavalry charging it in the flank too. Look at this. It's beautiful. This coordinated attack is bursting apart the enemy position. Now this column needs to go forward. You gotta keep up. You gotta keep up with the enemy retreating. You gotta keep pressure so that they will die 100%, and this actually remains decisive. You gotta chase them down. Enemies throwing in cavalry to try to save their armies, but it just can't do much. They have artillery along the line. It doesn't matter. You have massive amounts of routing yards. The column is never going to stop. You just keep going with more cavalry. You just keep going with more reserves. And oh, the enemy cavalry that's charging into you, this is a decent unit of light cavalry too, but it just routes. There's nothing that it can do. You're caught in the mass rout. Forward, forward, forward you go. Beautiful. I mean, that cav charge kind of got destroyed, but, what is necessary is being done. The enemy line is jumbled too. Look at this. They're getting hit so hard that they're just, like, absolutely screwed. They can't even micro their units in time. Meanwhile, I do want to show you, look, we have 2 corps pushing on 2 corps over here, and then 1v1s over here. This entire stack of infantry and all this cavalry is around 1 corps of our allies. If you have allies that are throwing and not pushing, while you are just getting destroyed, that's a problem too. You gotta recognize what's going on in the battlefield and react to it. If you're not having a good time, then your teammates, if you're having a good time, then your teammates usually are not having a good time. And you can see on this battlefield. You're just not having a good time. They're just trying to cycle in more cavalry, but I just form square. Hee hee. And I just stay high. Oh, well, that's a little pull through. My bad. And just look at them go. We've tried to open their position from here and just driven them back and routed them all the way back to this tree line. Look at them at the dead bodies just starting from here. Oh, this one's routing. Just into them. Straight into them. And look, just that's the amount of routing blobs that got farmed down by the Barrier. Look, and, this guy's trying to save save his allies by at least hitting something in front of him. He can't waste his troops. But, it's in vain because, the French are just in the tree line. They're defending this tree line with, pretty decent... These are really decent units. Palms deferred. These are pretty much guard units with their stats. Large freaking units with, like, very, very high accuracy, very good melee, very, very fast. Can square, has shock resistance and stamina. You just gotta pick your battles, and, we got 7 points over here, pushing into a 10. Our 11 is just running down this 12-pointer in the center. Our 8 is facing their 8. And then they have a 9 over here in the corner, facing down a 7. And, not making much progress. Not making much progress. So many problems for the Austrians here. And look at this. That's just blobs. Blobs that are just routing. Chase them down. We keep going. Davout is also attacking this line over here. Going in for the melee with his Grenadiers. Grenadiers, G6. Pretty sure these are Carabiniers, actually, to be more careful. But, they have really high melee stats. And that's the battle. It's over. At this point, what's happened is that, the Austrian center has just been obliterated by a massive French attack. And the French are holding on to this flank. It is still precarious for this corps over here, but the center is just deleted for basically no cost. I've lost 2 units. Davout has lost 2 units. I've lost like one, maybe. Yeah, look, I lost a skirmisher. I've lost a skirmisher for the entire, 2 armies, essentially. I've lost a skirmisher for 2 armies. This is what is scary about being attacked like this and bringing low morale units. Once the cavalry and the infantry can actually work together and just hit into the low morale Austrians, they just go. They don't exist anymore. Now we can shift this attack, once we farm this down, by the way, because the enemies can come back, so we're going to farm this down. We just shift this attack into these guys. The Austrians have removed themselves from the woods. Now we just go chase it down. Just look at the amount of dead Austrians here. My frames are just dropping. Look at this. So many slaughtered. Heaps upon heaps of bodies. And was that not a beautiful freaking battle? And the French, as they try to wrap up what are remaining of the Austrian armies, I just want to say, this was a fantastic game by us in the NTW3 Clan League against, it was me, the leader of Cheeses, against Grenadiers with Nassau, which is another clan, the GUN clan. Many thanks for this game. I just wanted to say it was lots of fun. And hope we can have a lot of better games. NTW3 community is absolutely incredible. Some great people in there, and absolutely great players too. I just want to say you can check out the Discord in the description down below. I'll post like a link that you guys can join through, and the NTW3 download link too. This game is absolutely awesome. True Napoleonic tactics are shown. If you want to check out the rest of this replay too, you can go ahead and join the Discord for that exactly same thing too. And I just, yeah. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.